Anna, and today I'm here to please you with my speech or my presentation about one of the most important empires that has overgone the European continent. Yeah, I'm talking about the Napoleonic Empire. More specifically, I'm going to talk to you about a small explanation like some territories, some dates, and maybe some facts about Napoleon Bonaparte. Then I'm going to talk to you about its origins, how it was originated, what were the causes. Then I'm going to tell you some battles, some coalitions that attacked the Napoleonic Empire, what happened, and also how it was defeated, by who, basically its defeat, and lastly some consequences and repercussions that it has had in the actual world and in the world then on time. So as I said, first of all, let me give you a small explanation. As you can see here in this picture, the Napoleonic Empire was expanded among almost the whole European continent. As you can see, among Spain, France, Italy, some parts of Germany, and the Netherlands, so basically almost the whole continent of Europe. And it was present from the year 1799 to the year 1815. It was guided or led by a man called Napoleon Bonaparte. This is why the empire was called the Napoleonic Empire. Now, this man was one of the most important characters of the 19th century in Europe because he was beloved and hated at the same time. He was a very important general and he had a lot of ideas, but they were always controverted by some people or another. So he was always the main topic of conversation. Now, he's also been considered one of the most important soldiers in history worldwide. This is a very important topic. I mean, he's been considered one of the best soldiers in the whole world, in the whole history of time. Then he's also well known for establishing the French Civil Code in 1779. And also, although he was a Republican general, this is a very important fact, and is that he always supported the idea of the Republic. So the power would be from the citizens. The power would be on the citizens' hands. And although he supported this idea, and he was the first consul of the French Republic, so the leader. Then he was the Emperor of France in the year 1804, and lastly the King of Italy in 1805. Let's move on to say what happened for this, what were the causes for this to happen. There were mainly three causes. First of all, the French Revolution, as you may know, the main cause. What happened is, well, the country wasn't happy with the government, mainly with the king, and they were all starving. They didn't have money, they were really poor. It was a really poor situation. And although there were a few rebellions, the citizens didn't solve out this problem, and then Napoleon took advantage of this situation and carried out a putsch. This way, he had the whole city of Paris under his control, because everybody thought, man, this guy knows how to control a city, this man knows how to make us keep moving. And they thought he was the best person to start making up an empire, to say that. Then we have a second reason which is Napoleon's earlier goals. Now, since Napoleon was an early age, as you can see, a young man, not only because of his parents' objectives, but also because he really liked that world, he studied in a military school. There, he learned how to be a lieutenant, apart from being the captain of the brigade in Toulon, and later on, a very important general. Due to this, he always wanted to explore new territories and to conquer new lands, to fight against armies, and this way, he carried out this empire. That was another reason. And then we have, last reason, military strategies. It is not really a very important reason, but Napoleon had really good military strategies. Here's one Waterloo campaign I'm going to talk about later on. He had really good military strategies, and people thought he was, again, the best general to be the leader of the empire, to be the emperor. And now, well, these were mainly the three causes. And now let's move on to what happened during its presence in the European continent. First, let me say that any battle between France and any other nation were called the Napoleonic Wars. Everything was around Napoleon. Okay, so the wars, the coalitions, the empire, everything was around Napoleon. I'm going to divide this site into coalitions because the Napoleonic Empire was attacked by a few coalitions, mainly 5. So let's start with the first one. For the first coalition that took place from the year 1793 to the year 1797, there was an alliance formed by Austria, Prussia, Great Britain, Spain, the Netherlands, and the Kingdom of Sardinia. As you can imagine, it was the first battle that the Napoleonic Empire won, so they were starting to become more powerful. And they started winning a bit of territory among Spain and a few places around. Then we have the second coalition that took place in the year 1805. From the year 1798 to the year 1805. Now, this time, Napoleon was in Egypt, and suddenly this coalition attacked his empire. Now, the main battles took place in the north of Italy and in Switzerland, and Austria, Great Britain, Portugal, and Russia were the coalition that attacked the Napoleonic Empire. Now, as I said, the main battles took place over here, north of Italy and Switzerland, and the Napoleonic Empire started to lose more battles, and it started getting less powerful than it was then. So what Napoleon did was he went back to France, and there he was named in 1799, he was named the first consul of the Republic of France. Then he had more power, and he could get more means, he could get more men for his army, he could get more weapons, and then become more powerful. So this is what he did. He became more powerful, he got a better army, and then he went to Great Britain to fight against Great Britain and its allies. There, the alliance was defeated, and Great Britain was bound to sign an agreement with the Napoleonic Empire in which they would promise peace to each other. They wouldn't fight again with each other. But there were a few agreements in this pact that Great Britain didn't really like, and they thought the Napoleonic Empire, or they were kind of lying to them, and then they started fighting again. So the agreement didn't work. This time, Austria, Prussia, and Sweden joined with Great Britain to form a third coalition. Anyway, this time, Spain joined with France, allied with France, and also some German armies. They were allies. So now the Napoleonic Empire was expanded on all these territory. It was getting more powerful. This time, the Napoleonic Empire went to Austria to fight against the Austrians that were clueless that the Napoleonic Empire was going to attack. Now, the Napoleonic Empire wins this battle, and Russia, which is an ally from Austria, seems to be helping Austria to defeat the Napoleonic Empire. Now, we formed a fourth coalition that's made up of, France, the Napoleonic Empire, with Spain and German armies, fights against Great Britain, Russia, Sweden, and Prussia. Now, this time, this takes place in the year 1806, and this time what happens is that it first fights against Russia, the Russians, and it defeats the Russians, and the Russians seem to be bound to sign another agreement with the Napoleonic Empire that later on seems to not work again. And also the Napoleonic Empire later on fights against Prussia, which loses, of course, and then the Napoleonic Empire gets Berlin too, because Prussia was situated over this place more or less, and Berlin was of its property, and now the Napoleonic Empire would get Berlin also for its territory. Lastly, we have a fifth coalition, which meant the end or the defeat of the Napoleonic Empire. Let me talk about it more So, this time, as I said, Russia started to be against France again, although they signed an agreement. And the allies were Russia, Great Britain, Sweden, and Russia. And these four nations had become very powerful. So they had really good armies, they had a lot of weapons, they were really powerful armies. And this time, the Napoleonic Empire lost. And it meant its defeat. Now, it took place in the year 1815, and the battle was called the Waterloo Campaign. Now, lastly, after knowing everything that happened, we should know that the Napoleonic Empire has had a few consequences and repercussions, not only in the actual world, but also in the world now and then. In its politics, in government. Okay, first of all, for those times, it made the bourgeois predominate as the most important social class. It was a very important advance for them. Then we have the liberalism, which is an ideology that supports equality, liberty, and national sovereignty in every situation. Now, this movement was very important for those times, but it has also had a really important consequences in the actual world. And then later on, from liberalism appeared nationalism, which is another ideology that didn't only affect those times, or specifically, but also in the actual world, we still have some characteristics that form part of the characteristics from this ideology. Now, knowing this, I think it is very important to know about the Napoleonic Empire, because it wasn't only an empire that was controlling almost the whole continent of Europe during more than 2 decades, but it is a very important fact in history. I think it is very important for us who live in Europe to know about what empires came, and this is a very important one.